Hi friends, my name is Emily. Welcome to Oh, I'm Lonely. It's my podcast about unpacking the big feelings that I have that usually whittle down to loneliness and disconnection from various aspects of my life, from career, communities, loved ones, and sometimes it's just about being plain old alone. Here we talk about all the different places loneliness creeps its sweet BB self into, and I try to understand what story that loneliness is trying to tell me. So please join me, because even though it's lonely here, you aren't alone.
Hi, friends. So, what you're about to hear is a pretty intense, very emotional telling of what my last year has looked like. Um, really, what my last October looked like. Um, Gabe had a really terrible health scare, which I get very much into. So, content warning at the top of this that this one's intense. I cry a lot. I cut out as many like sniffles and snots as I could. I tried to keep it concise, but as I'm listening through, I don't mention a lot of people's names. I don't mention phone calls that I had with like my sister and my aunt, and um, but I hope people know that I felt so much appreciation and gratitude for all of the love that was sent to us. I get into it a little bit, but I just want to say off the top, thank you to everybody who helped us through this time and who gave their resources, who gave their information, and who just gave their love and prayers. Needless to say is there's a lot of details that I missed despite how long the episode is. There are a lot of details that I missed, and I appreciate all those people deeply. So if I don't mention you, I'm sorry, but this really is a story about my mental experience, my emotional journey, and what I went through, and I hope you can see it as that. And it was very raw. I think this is the most vulnerable, one of the most vulnerable times I've ever expressed myself online. And I appreciate you listening. So thank you. Here we go.
Hey friends, how are we? Back with another solo episode. And today's a really important one for me. Today is a really poignant one. It might be emotional. Do we expect any less? But yeah, this one today is important for me. I got the blessing of the individual that this is basically about. I didn't ask permission. Well, maybe in a way my mind saw it as permission, but what I was really looking for was his blessing. I talked to Gabe about this and he's fully in support, so please don't feel like I am divulging his secrets. Um, but today's a pretty heavy one. Today we'll deal with hospitalizations and um, probably maybe a little bit of graphic information. So and trauma. So if this one is too much for y'all, please take care of yourselves. But I think that this, for me, it's healing and necessary and needed. And I think it can resonate with a lot of people. So I really want to talk about it today. So I'm hoping that this is coming out when I expect it to. Hold on, I'm trying to readjust my blanket because I need a blanket today. I'm on my couch. I've started recording these without my fancy mic because my microphone sucks. So, and I'm not able to get a new one right now. So, I'm just using the computer and it actually sounds better. But I digress. I am deflecting. Today we're going to talk about the 1 year anniversary of when my husband almost died. And he's well now. He's thriving, truly, working on himself in so many different ways, and I couldn't be more proud of him. Um, and I really hope that I'm in San Francisco with him right now, as that this is happening, as this episode comes out. But if not, maybe I maybe I got booked and blessed working on a nice contract. But who knows? But the hope is that I am with him right now because this year is this milestone is a big one because not only is it the anniversary of Gabe's health scare, but it's also his 30. Oh my god, Gabe, forgive me. I'm so sorry. I'm 33, so that would make you 35. You turn 35. Ooh, sorry if I'm wrong. And our 5-year wedding anniversary. Last year on on October 5th, the day before Gabe's birthday, we had the most amazing day. We took Daisy and we went to like our favorite um like upstate kind of like uh place to pick pumpkins, and they always have live music and drinks, and you can get apple cider donuts, and the views are beautiful, and then there's like it just has everything. We went and we took pictures and we had a great time, and I kept thinking, are you having a good time for your birthday? And he's like, yeah, this is great, we're having such a good time. And then we came home, and I got a text from my friend Lindsay saying that she had injured herself and that she'd be out of her show for a while. And I think she was bummed out. I mean, rightfully so. So I was like, hey, come on over. Come on over. Come hang out with us. We'll have a good night, distract you a little bit. So Lindsay came over and we watched. Did we watch Harry Potter? I think we watched some Harry Potter. And because, we were in spooky season mode, like we were in it. We're like, fall bitches, like, let's do this. We just had our pumpkin day. Lindsay comes over and like we're having a ball. We're just like talking. It felt like a true like theater kid kind of moment of us just living in the present. We were so present. We were having a great time. Then all of a sudden at night, I go, I want to paint that. Like I had these swatches on the wall. I really wanted to do an arch, like one of those like arches you see on fucking Pinterest and on TikTok and all those places where people are doing home design. And I was like, let's do this. And Gabe, she's like, yeah, let's do it. So I want to say at like 10:30 at night, we move the bed, we start painting the wall. Like it was it was ADHD at its finest, but it was great because we were painting the wall and we are having a great time and eating and stuffing our faces and probably drinking. I don't know. But we were just really loving our lives, right? We were just having a great time. When we go to bed, everything's fine. Everything's great. Because I was like, tomorrow's Gabe's birthday. I don't even remember if we had anything particular planned. I'm sure maybe go out to dinner with his parents, but like, Gabe for his birthday is always like, let's just be chill. It's not that big of a deal to me. Where I'm like, birth, we have to celebrate. I get that from my mom. Like, I'm like, we have to celebrate the birthday. And Gabe is just like, I need you to chill. So we go to bed and we wake up. And I remember Gabe waking up pretty early, which is rare for him. He's this man. There could be a burglar, and that burglar would take me, would take Daisy and half our shit, and Gabe would not wake up. Um, but I remember him waking up and being in the bathroom and Lindsay was staying over. Like Lindsay was there that night. And then Gabe gets sick in the bathroom. I remember, I mean, I don't know how long he was in there for, but he was in there for quite a while. And he comes back and he's like, and I hear like fear in his voice. And I was like, yeah, what's up? And he was like, I just got really, really sick. I don't want you to go in there, but I can't clean it. I feel really weak. And I'm like, no, 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 I'll clean it. It's fine. Like, it's fine. Like, I thought to myself, I don't know, I was thinking GI, not pleasant, but like nothing that, we haven't seen before. And he was like, no, no, no. Like he was begging me not to go in. And I went, okay, get into bed. Like you look very, very pale. Just get into bed. I will handle this. Please trust me that I will handle this. And I'm thinking he maybe he has a very rare strain of COVID, right? Like because it truly came out of nowhere, no symptoms. Um, and also I hadn't seen what had happened. I go into the bathroom and this is graphic. This is graphic, but it's also something I need to talk about because I never get to. I don't. No one. I never get to tell my side of this. And I get into the bathroom, and the entire bathroom is covered in blood. It's covered. It's covered, and it's everywhere. And it didn't. It was number one terrifying, but I was also so confused because I was like, I don't understand. I truly don't understand. Like, I don't understand why this came out of his body. Um, but I tell you what, I went into this like straight up survival mode. I scrubbed the shit out of the bathroom. Again, I wasn't sure if this was a very rare form of COVID. So I texted Lindsay. I went, hey, I need you to leave because I don't know what this is. I don't know if it's contagious. So you need to go. And she was like, got it. Tell me if you need anything. Thank you for like thinking of me. I was like, yeah, I don't want anybody else being in here because I don't know what's going on, but I will keep you updated. And so in my mind, I just didn't think of it as blood. I just saw my husband is ill. I have to clean this and I need to take care of him. So I scrubbed it, hands and knees, scrubbing this bathroom to make it at least tolerable to look at, to be in. I don't know how long it took me, but I cleaned it. And I went into the bedroom and he's sleeping. And I was like, hey, like, just lie low. I was like, I cleaned the bathroom. I was like, you look pretty pale. So, like, drink some water. And I'm going to take, I was like, I'll take Daisy on her shit. Like, I'll do everything with Daisy. Like, you just stay and sleep. I don't know. I don't remember if I took her to the park and got all of her energy out. But, like, I was gone for a little while. And I come back and he's still sleeping. And I was like, okay. So I wake him up because it's his birthday after all. I want him to try to like get a little bit of the day if he's feeling okay. And and I was like, how do you feel? He's like, I feel like shit. Like I don't know what I feel, but I feel awful. But he just did not look like himself. And I was like, maybe if you take a shower, it will like make you feel a little better. And so he gets ready he goes into the bathroom and I just hear him like I hear him moaning. I hear him making sounds that don't sound like him. And something in me just said, like, go to the bathroom. Go now. And I don't know how I heard him because I didn't have my headphones in, thank God. But I was in like the bedroom, I think, or the living room. But I heard him moan in a way that was like, that's not him. That doesn't sound like him. And luckily he didn't lock the door because this man locks the door all the time when he's in the bathroom. And I run in, and as soon as I get into the bathroom, he's starting to fall over. He's sitting on the toilet and he's just starting to fall over. And I caught him. I caught him before, like, his head was so close to hitting the bathtub. And I caught him. I push him up, and this man is dead weight. Like, there's nothing, like, he is completely passed out. And um and I start like tapping his face and trying to get him to come to, saying like screaming, I'm sure, like telling him to like come to, calling his name. And he kind of comes to and he goes, what happened? And I said, I think you passed out. Like, and I'm not thinking at this point that this man has lost so much blood. Like, I'm not connecting what had happened before to now. I'm just thinking present moment, what's happening right in this second. And I was just like thinking to myself, I think we need to go to the hospital because I don't know what's going on. And he's just like, no, 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 I don't think I need to go to the hospital. And I'm like, I don't. are you sure? Are you sure? And all of a sudden he starts, I see like everything leave him, and he goes completely pale. His lips are blue, and he passes out again, and he starts to fall in the other direction. And I just like, I catch him again, and I bring him down to the ground. I'm doing everything to just like wake him up, like, and I'm brought back to, I'm mentally brought back to a time where something similar happened with my dad when he fell, and I was the only one there, and I caught him and literally like slapped the shit out of him until he woke up. but um but he just kept coming in and out of consciousness, and it was so scary because I was, you think, oh, I'm strong, I'm a strong human being, I can lift a lot. But when someone is not able to sustain any of their own weight, if they're fully dead weight, like it's like someone has thrown a wet carpet at you, and you're like, I don't know how to hold this. And so I call 911. 911 comes, and of course we're on a fourth floor walk up at the time. And and they take him to the hospital. They were like, whoa, your blood sugars, like your blood pressure is so low. I told them about what had happened, and we go to the hospital, and we're there for hours. We're just, and luckily they let me in. I was just like, oh my God, they're not going to let me in. They're not going to let me in. I don't know what COVID regulations are, like, going to do. And so they let me in because I begged. And we're there for a long time. And Gabe is doing everything he can to like keep light of the situation. And we're thinking it's an ulcer, or we're thinking it's like, and it's his birthday. Like, all of this is happening on his birthday. And the doctors are coming back and forth with different ideas of what it could be. But there had been too many times during the day where he'd lost consciousness because of clearly the blood he lost, because his hemoglobins, I think that's what they're called. Yeah, it's like the protein in your blood that carries oxygen to your body's organs and tissues. Great. His were way down. They should be at like between 10 and 14, and his were like in the single digits, and it was just not good. But it got to a point where he was just like, hey, I'm gonna have to stay here. You go home, get a good night's sleep. It's been a long day for you too. I'll be fine. I'm gonna like, they're gonna give me a room soon, and I'll be home tomorrow. I go home, I somehow sleep. I think my in-laws took the dog. Lindsay was checking in with me all the time. At the time I was in a rough spot with my family, so I wasn't talking to them. I was only talking to like my sister, and having her kind of negotiate between everybody else of what was going on. And the next day comes, and I go to the room that they tell me he's in, and they're like, "Oh, he's already gone down." Because what they had to do is they had to give him a scope, which is basically they put like a camera, I believe, through your throat, and just check out what's going on in like the stomach lining and stuff. And they couldn't see anything. They couldn't see anything. And when he got out, they're like, "Oh, he's in the ICU," and I was like, "He's in the what? He's in the what now?" And they're like, "Oh, it's just kind of like good for post-op, like for him to be in there." And I'm like, okay, like, and I just don't like, these are not things that I know. I just keep thinking like, this is wild that we have to go through this right now. Like, what the fuck is going on? And I had this wonderful nurse, trying to explain to both of us that like what was going on. And it was just strange because they were just like, they couldn't see anything. They couldn't see anything in particular. But his hemoglobins are not changing. He's like, his cells are not growing fast enough on their own. It's just bizarre. Just like hanging out, basically just waiting for like just time, right? It was just kind of like they didn't give him a transfusion yet because they didn't think he needed it. They weren't sure if he needed it. And then I think that was kind of all for that day. And they're like, we're going to do another scope tomorrow and see if anything's changed. But they were like, he's anytime that he would get up to like try to walk, he would basically like lose consciousness. And so they're like, he's a fall risk. He's not safe to go home. And I was like, there's no way I can get him up 4 flights of steps. It's just not going to be able to happen. Or down 4 flights of steps if we have to come back to the hospital. So, like, staying at the hospital was the best bet. And then I come back the next day, and he's already in for his scope. And I thought I was going to get there in time for it. And I didn't. This is the 8th now. Yeah. And so he goes in for his scope, and they still couldn't figure it out what was going on. They couldn't see it. They couldn't figure it out. They were basically just being like, we have to wait to see what happens next. And so, in a protective measure, while he's in the second scope, or after they get out, they decided to intubate him, which is basically they put tubes into his throat, like a breathing tube, a food tube, and they decided to do that for him. And everyone kept telling me that it was a preventative measure, and that it was to make sure that, like, his body was resting, so that they could try to figure out what was happening, but, like, everything else was at rest, so that the bad thing that was happening in his stomach would maybe be more prominent, so that, like, they could figure it out. And they just kept doing scopes to try to figure out what was going on. And so he's intubated. He's not completely out, but, like, he's just kind of like, he's got these, like, gloves on his hands, and I can see he's uncomfortable when he's kind of, like, going in and out, but he's mainly sleeping throughout the day. But, just to see your partner that, like, days ago was, like, doing a class of, like, a boxing class, and frolicking through the fucking apple orchards, and then he's, like, lying in a hospital bed completely, like, wrapped up, is just, like, it's so wild to see that tr- that that transfer of events, and it doesn't make sense in your brain, and it's like, it feels so chaotic, and it feels so, like, unfair to watch the person you love go through that, when there's such a person that takes such good care of themselves. That was kind of like the first 2 days in the ICU of just, like, scoping and trying to figure out, scoping, trying to figure out. And meanwhile, before any of this, I didn't even say, like, I feel like the amount of information that was, like, put in front of me, like, it was so overwhelming. Like, I remember it, but I also don't, because so much was happening. So many people were asking me questions, and I was just like, I don't know that answer. And I don't know that answer. And I just kept thinking to myself, we're too young to be going through this. Like, we're only in our early 30s. We're too young. And then I kept thinking to myself, a lot of people a lot younger have to go through this. So, like, you are old enough to go through this, Emily. Like, you are old enough. And so you got to do what your partner needs, and you have to focus really, really hard. You got to do this. And so yeah, let's backtrack a little bit. Getting a lot of information, and I reached out to a member of my family who is a nurse, even though we weren't really on good terms. And I was like, I need a resource. I need someone who knows this. And so, we're talking about all of it, and I'm getting a little information, and I was hearing different things of what it could be. And I did hear at one point that it could be like an abnormality in a clump of blood cells. I was like, okay, like, I was like, those are just words to me that somehow mean something. And um, my aunt would be like, that's usually in the brain. It is rare for it to be in the stomach, but it's not unheard of. And I was like, okay, maybe that's what it is. And we're like, so it's not an ulcer, so it's not a bleeding ulcer. Like, what is it? And, like, the days were just, I remember, like, calling our agent and saying, like, just filling them in, because Gabe had already gotten the offer, but not the contract yet, of Moulin Rouge. And I knew that that was something that every time Gabe would kind of come to in the hospital bed, that he'd be, like, worried about. and I had to call all of our bands that we were working with at the time and say that we couldn't do the gigs because whatever was going on with Gabe, he would not be okay to sing in the next couple weeks. Just I knew he wouldn't be. And we canceled a vacation and he was really bummed about that. And meanwhile, like he was just kind of responding with like pouting or like any kind of gesture he could like try to communicate. But yeah, he was having a really hard time of communicating with me and he was getting very frustrated whenever he couldn't. But I mean, I understand, like, how could you not get frustrated? Like, 2 days ago, everything was completely fine and you were living a normal life and now you can't even talk because you've got tubes down your throat. But he was so fucking brave, he was so strong, and so was I. And so was my mother-in-law who was there with me like pretty much the entire time, while my father-in-law watched my dog. And then I had all this friends and family messaging me like nonstop with me. But then, um, but then things got really scary, and I felt completely alone, because I had to really think about what life could look like if things didn't go how we hoped. So on the night of the 9th, going into the 10th, Gabe's temperature started to rise, and it just kept going up. And I just had this really weird feeling that something was wrong. And they were like, "Oh," the doctors didn't seem very concerned because they're like, "No, that happens sometimes when, the tube is in his throat, could cause infection. The body's just trying to protect itself." But like his heart rate was rising. Like I want to say past 120. And when his heart had been pretty slow the past couple days because of all of his blood loss. And um it's raising dramatically. He's starting to lose control of different parts of his body, which is I won't reveal, but like he's starting to lose control of other things. And and I was just like I demanded that the doctors get in there and I was like something is wrong, something is wrong, something is wrong. Like and I felt myself breaking. I felt myself shattering. And I just heard my mother-in-law be like, "You have to hold it together for him. You have like," she's like, "I know it's scary, but you have to look at him in the eyes and you have to tell him that he's going to be okay because he needs you." And I was like, "Okay, I got it. I can do that." And I'm so sorry if you can't even hear what I'm saying, but I remember just talking to him and whispering in his ear and telling him to, if he could, to look at me and that I'm there and that he's going to be okay and that the doctors are working on him. But like, meanwhile, in my mind, I am terrified because this cannot be how it ends. This cannot be how I see my husband. Absolutely not. This cannot be it. And then they told me I needed to leave the room because they needed to work on him and they needed to clean him up. And I got outside the ICU and I just collapsed. I joke about it now because I can, but like of what it looked like because it was very dramatic. I literally like threw myself against the wall. I was like, I don't know what show I think I'm in, but I was so scared. I got on the phone and I called my parents who I hadn't spoken to in a while, and I said, "You would need to come." I was like, "Just get here now. Start driving. I don't care what you're doing. Get here." And I told my friends and I told mainly Lindsay and a couple of my other like close circle friends, and I was just like, I don't care who you pray to, I don't care how you don't do it, I don't care what vibes you send, but I was like, start now because I need you more than ever right now. And although I truly felt lifted, I truly felt like I had spiritual energy below me personally, like lifting me and holding me and enveloping me, but I also felt so fucking alone because I couldn't help but think like what is what is my life like without this man? There is no life. I don't know what that is, and I don't want to know what that is. And then after I screamed at the doctors, bless them, I was just like, this man is my everything. Figure it the fuck out. I don't care how young he is. I don't care how strong he is. Fucking figure it out. And so finally, eventually, and I'm sure that they were frustrated with me, and that's okay. I couldn't help how I felt. And I stand by it. I was like, he can't advocate for himself. So I know that this is what he would be doing for me. So I trust the doctors and their medicine, but I know him better than anybody. And so once his like vitals calmed down, he was completely out though. I was able to go in and just like kiss him and tell him that like it's gonna be okay, that they're gonna operate on him, they're gonna check him out. They basically had to like open him up. The anesthesiologist was very kind and like let me be the last one to say goodbye to him and basically be the first one to say hello to him. And I remember like I remember feeling like I was like putting a spell on the room. Like I put my hands, this isn't, I don't, it's not funny, but I was like, wow, like I was doing everything I could. I was making deals. I was just like I remember putting my hands out. Like not like I was like laying hands on in prayer, but I was literally like putting all of my spiritual energy into my hands and like sending it to the other room in the operating room. And he was in there for a while. And eventually the doctor came out. One of the doctors, I think she was like a resident. She was young and she was small. She was like tinier than me. I'm like 5'2". This woman must have been like 5 foot. And she was telling me that she was just like, we figured it out. And he has what is called Dieulafoy's lesion, which is basically an artery in his stomach, and it was way up high in like I think the left side of his of his stomach. The lining of his stomach. It was like an artery that burst, and they couldn't get to it, and that's what was causing everything. And that's why nothing else with the different scopes and the different ways to like mend it or stop the bleeding weren't working because it was actually this much bigger thing. And it was, since it was like an artery basically that burst, they couldn't stop the bleeding. So they basically like folded it over and like sewed it to high heaven. And then other little spots that looked like they could be a problem too, they did that as well. Because the other option is, if that hadn't worked, the next option was to remove his stomach. They were like, don't worry about that until we have to, but like let's hope that this works. But we wouldn't have known that for like 24 hours if this basically had took. And so that next 24 hours was like the longest, another one of the longest nights of days of my life. And so then after his surgery was like completely done and we had gotten all that information and signed all the papers that basically signed my husband's life away into hands of people that I didn't know. And the questions that, you as a partner have to answer if the worst were to happen. It's just like, it's so hard to have to come to those realities, but then still stay optimistic that nothing's going to happen. It's like, it's such an isolating feeling that you're like, nobody has felt this before. Nobody should ever feel this. And I know that that's not true. I know so many people do, but like in the moment, you just feel like I am alone. I am alone in this, even when you're surrounded by people. And not to mention, I would go home every night since his birthday and our anniversary. And I was just alone, going home to an apartment, and thinking to myself, what if he never comes back? What if it's just me here? What do I do? I'm so grateful for the friends that like came and put food in my fridge and cooked. Mainly Lindsay just coming and cooking for me. And but I just, every time I go home, just felt, I don't think I've ever cried like I cried. I've never heard those sounds come out of my body before. The the wailing and the gnashing of teeth, It's just all the pain I held in all day so that Gabe wouldn't see it. I let myself go home and just weep because I couldn't talk anymore. I didn't have Daisy because my in-laws were taking care of, my father-in-law was really watching Daisy throughout the day, so I didn't have to focus on another being when I'd come home. I just focused on me, and it was really, really hard to even eat. But I just let myself cry and let it out so that I could hold it in the next day. And the night after his surgery was probably the worst night. But no, that night I went to my in laws. I went to my mother in law because it was like, I want to say it was like maybe 2, maybe 3 a.m. when I got home. But there was no parking spots because I lived in a trash neighborhood where there was zero parking. And so my mother-in-law was like, "Just follow me home, stay at our place, and then you can sleep with Daisy." And Daisy, like, just slept on my lap all night, and bless that dog. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so snotty. It's so gross. And then the next day, I got to the hospital, and I think Gabe was awake, and yeah, he was awake, and he was so confused. He was uncomfortable because he didn't because he didn't know that the tubes were going in because he was already under. So he was so confused because, the last people in our sphere who had tubes in their mouths had COVID. And so he thought he had COVID really badly. And so he was so confused, just so confused. And I tried desperately to like make things make sense for him. I don't know if I did a good job, but I tried. But I didn't tell him the scope of what had happened because I was just like, I don't want to scare him because some of the questions he was asking me about what was going on, that I was able to say, no, that's not it. Um, you know, some of the questions he asked just broke my heart. I gave him as much information as I could to like calm him and help him understand, but like not to the extent of where he was the night before. And luckily, we kind of realized that the surgery had worked, and that it was a slow process, but like we were learning more and more that it was working. His hemoglobins and his blood hadn't gone back up yet, but like they they uh, they sewed him up real good and tight. So it felt like the scariest bit was over because that 24 hours after his surgery, I was just on bated breath because I didn't know what was coming next. And then he was able to breathe on his own, and so slowly the tube started to come out, and he was so brave, but he was so frustrated. And just having to be so strong for your partner for so long it's exhausting. It's so hard because you in a way you have to deny yourself your carnal needs of like feeling for your person. And during the time, like, people ask you how you're doing, but then they like don't ask you later. I feel like I lived through this weekend of these events over and over again. It's not as much now, but now that I'm coming up to this year anniversary, it's just happening so much more. So we eventually got the tubes out, and soon he was able to start getting up and moving, and that's when he like did his live and like communicated what had gone on. And he still had more time to heal, and the doctors like had told me like he might not be able to do this job that's coming up. And I was like, no one is talking to him about that except me, like, and not right now. He eventually got out of the ICU, which was like the best feeling. And his doctors kept from the ICU kept checking in on him in like the general area, but he was getting better, walking around like within a couple days. And so it finally felt hopeful again. And then when we got him out, I think he was in the hospital for like a full week, maybe the 14th or the 15th was when we got him out. And then the long process of him recovering began. And there were a couple of scares here and there, which like truly like I felt like I was on the brink of a breakdown at the end of the year because I felt like I couldn't be strong anymore. I felt like I couldn't do it, but I did. I somehow did it. And I think I saw how strong he was being, that I was like, okay, if he's the one physically going through this, I can do this too. Even though I'm mentally going through it, like he needs me and I need me to be strong. So like But it's so exhausting and so isolating to have to be so strong for so long. And then, you know, he's all recovered and doing really well, and then he goes away on tour and then he leaves me. And then I'm out of that neighborhood, but now alone in this big home without him. And I know it's different. I know it's not the same, but like there's so many times when I kind of had to have this weird like PTSD flashback type thing where I go, it's as if my brain thinks he's completely gone and that this is the reality we live in without Gabe in our lives anymore. And every time that happens, I have to like FaceTime him just to see his face, just to be like, nope, he's still here. He's still here, Emily. Like there were two paths, and we went down the path where he's still here. But those moments creep up, and I never expected that to happen. And I think that's been happening a lot recently, where like random text messages from him make me feel like it said like they trigger me in that way, and I don't know why, but it's bizarre. And so I'm constantly worried. I'm constantly on edge. I have not unclenched my asshole in a year. And I would really like to unclench for fuck's sake. But yeah, it's I appreciate deeply when people ask me how Gabe's health is, and in a lot of ways it's hard for both of us because it's like it feels like it's become part of our personality, part of our identity, and it has, but like we also really want to move on from it. You know, it's not all of who Gabe is, it's not all of who I am. It's not all of, my mother-in-law was there too. It's not all of who she was. It has shaped our reality. It has shaped our present moment in more ways than one. And life is just it's different now. Like life looks different now because of this event. And I hope one day I'll be fully healed from it. But like the people who are on the other end of big medical scares that don't end in death, which I cannot say how grateful I am that he's still here, but like it is a different type of loneliness that I feel so isolated in this feeling because there's so much guilt connected to it of like I shouldn't still feel this way because Gabe is here. Gabe made it when there are other people that don't make it. But I'm also living a life where he's not physically with me all the time, so my brain gets tricked. I have to constantly reassure my brain that like he is still here. If anything, he's thriving. And my brain is she's strong, man. Like my brain is just a strong fucking bitch, and she likes to trick me. She's a trickster. So yeah, that's my experience with this monstrous year and 2 years. Fuck, like I'm okay, I think, but this event has shaped me as a wife. It's shaped me as a partner. It shaped me as a human being, and I don't know what comes next. I just hope that if any of you have gone through something similar and you felt alone in this, I wouldn't even call it like survival skill. I would call it something like I don't even know. I don't even know if there's a term for this, but there's something there. But thank you so much. If you're still here, if you're still listening, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for going on this with me. Again, like I don't know if Gabe will listen to this episode because it just might be too painful, and that's completely okay. Um, but Gabe, you're truly one of the strongest people I've ever met in my life. But in a lot of ways, I think I'm stronger because I had to fucking put up with this. But you know, I give myself a lot of credit for how I was able to handle myself and the whole situation. And it was really interesting because I don't think that this is a typical thing, but there was a moment in me where, like, part of my body said to run. Part of my body said, just leave. And I chose to stay and fight. And I don't think that that's something that, like, oh, I chose positivity. No, like, I know we're scared, Emily. We're terrified. But we stick around and we face the scariest shit for the people we love the most because we know that they would do, and we hope that they would do the same thing for us. And women are fucking strong as fuck. This woman, I wish I knew this doctor's name, but this woman that is the one that figured out what was wrong with him and put her entire arm in his stomach to figure it out. Like, she was like, "Oh, it's wild. I put like my whole arm inside it." And I was like, "Too much information. Thank you so much." Just the fact that she was the one that did it, figured it out. I was like, "Yeah, fuck yeah." When I'm in a better place, I will celebrate this feminist moment. But right now, I am surviving. In conclusion, if you have gone through something like this, or worse, or just different, or if you lost your partner on the other end, I'm so sorry. My heart goes with you. And if you've gone through it like I have, and you still feel utterly alone at the other end of it, and you feel like you've kind of um, lost the comfort and the attention of others, or it's shifted in a way that doesn't feel like comforting anymore, or you feel like you haven't healed yet, my heart goes with you too because I'm right there with you. And I don't know what that means in the future. I think therapy will be in my life for a very long time. But I know I feel a little lighter finally telling my side of this and celebrating the life that my husband's been able to live since this day and the determination he's had, but also like the determination I've had to live through this. So, what's my loneliness trying to tell me through this? She's telling me that I can do really fucking hard things, even when I don't know how hard it's going to get, but that I am capable and I am worthy of it. But sometimes we have to be so present that it hurts, and this one hurt a lot, and it still hurts. Okay. I think I got to wrap this up. It's been about, at least on my end, it's been a little over an hour. I don't know what I've edited down to, but it's probably close to that. So again, if you've stuck around this whole time, thank you. I love you dearly. And I'll talk to you all soon. I love you. Bye, friends. Thank you so much for listening to this installment of Oh, I'm Lonely. I hope you feel a little bit more connected than you did before you turn on the podcast today. I know I do. Today's episode was hosted and edited by yours truly. Check me out on social media at Emily Martinez Official on Insta and Emily Martinez Entertainer on YouTube. But most importantly, please, please, please subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every platform that you listen to podcasts. It would help us out greatly if you could download, rate, and leave a gorgeous little comment on our page, because I would love to help more lovely, lonely humans like yourself, like myself, feel a little less, well, alone out there. Until next time, my friends.